What was the hardest thing to adjust to when you first came into this prison?
I've always naively, I guess, thought that women were the gentler sex, the weaker sex. That's what society wants us to believe.
My husband. I'm in here for my husband.
We've heard many stories about male prisons, the gruesome living conditions, the animosity between inmates, and the brutal psychological torments remind us why we should refrain from crimes that could land us there. But have you ever wondered how the prisons for female criminals are? The situation there isn't any better than the ones for the males. In fact, some of these female prisons score much higher when it comes to brutality and psychological punishments. So what goes on in these female prisons? And how do these female inmates survive their time there? Well, stay tuned, because in this video, we'll tell you stories about the most brutal female prisons in the world and what makes them so feared among female inmates. Julia Tutwiler Prison, Alabama, USA. Located in southern Alabama, the Julia Tutwiler Prison is named after the Angel of the Stockades, Julia Tutwiler, a noted Alabama educator. It was completed in December 1942 to replace the first Alabama state prison known as Wetumpka State Penitentiary. Julia Tutwiler Prison only houses serious offenders, and there have been tales of repeated abuse in the last 80 years. A good peek into the lives of the inmates has shown that the living conditions are utterly inhuman. Physical and sexual abuse is very common, conducted by at least 1/3 of the staff of the prison. Female inmates also go through physical abuse based on race and orientation. There's almost no sense of privacy, and the inmates shower while the guards watch them. They also don't have access to medical health care, which raises concerns about their safety.
I'm told the horror stories of prison. I flipped out. I had a breakdown and tried to commit suicide 4 times before I got.
The prison was only made for about 400 people, but currently houses almost double the number. This means that some inmates have to spend nights on the floor. There's also scarcity of basic necessities and toiletries, such as toilet paper.
How much do you get?
You get around my 5 rolls every month.
And what happens if you need to use more than that?
You in trouble.
Many tried to raise their voice against the ongoing mistreatment, but nothing was done, and the whistleblowers were sent to solitary confinement for speaking out against the abuse. A former inmate, Pam Williams, spoke about the horror stories in Tutwiler after her release.
Terrible experiences is when you see officers that are actually attacking inmates or sexually abusing them, and you're told you better not say nothing or you're in trouble or you can be in seg next.
Kachon Concentration Camp, Kachon City, North Korea. Most North Korean prisoners are political and are punished for going against the government and less for committing actual crimes. Based in Kachon City in North Korea, this prison has a 4-meter wall with barbed wire surrounding it, giving the inmates 0 chances to escape its clutches. Very few have managed to do so and live to tell the tale, but the picture is more or less the same in all concentration camps in North Korea. They are kept in inhuman conditions with poor living standards. If anyone tries to escape these camps, they are gunned down without a second thought. Inside the prison, there's a rubber and leather factory. The prisoners are forced to work there and must meet a production quota to avoid being punished. Sometimes the work hours span to 18 hours a day. The prisoners live at the mercy of the guards. Any misdeed can wreak havoc upon them. After a hard day of work, the prisoners go to sleep in overcrowded rooms. A room that can hold 30 inmates usually contains triple, and this takes away their peace of mind. The basic amenities are also scarce. Hundreds of inmates are forced to share one bathroom, and some go without showering for months. Needless to say, medical care is mostly unavailable in this prison, and this causes many contagious diseases to spread easily.
제대로 공급하는데 물에다 포커지에다가 죽을 만들어서 근데 그 밥도 온전한 게 아니고 다 썩은 거야. 냄새 풀풀 나요.
The inmates are fed rotten food as a way of punishment. Pregnant women are forced to get rid of their pregnancies. Newborns only live for a day. If someone dies, their bodies are preserved and their families are never notified. When a significant number of bodies pile up, they're quickly cremated.
남자 여자가 같이 죽으면 돼. 그 지하에 있습니다. 거기다 여는 남한테 그다가 좀 많이 차대니까 그리고 차에다 실어가지고 좀 불망산이라는 데 가져가. 사람 너무 죽었을 때 그 사람 재 나오니까 이렇게 산더미처럼 묻어 있습니다. 우리 그걸 남하려고 바라고 있어요. 있었으면 좋겠는데 그냥 일하기 싫으면 저렇게 된다.
The prisoners living in these concentration camps go through countless brutalities, and they hope that someday they would be treated with a little humanity. Grand Valley Institution, Ontario, Canada. Also known as Prison for Women in Kingston, Ontario, the Grand Valley Institution was opened in 1997 and was Canada's only federal prison for women. Inmates with more than a 2-year sentence are sent here to rectify their behavior, after which they're reintegrated into society. The prison has 2 sections. One is for high-security prisoners, and the other is for medium-security inmates. The high-security inmates live in their specified cells. Their activities are highly monitored, and they're usually escorted to shower and fields. Not much has been discussed about the living conditions of the inmates in this prison, but a report made by City News' Christina Hauerun in May 2023 showed how the prison treated its medium-security prisoners. The host was given an exclusive sneak peek inside the prison, and she gave the audience a glimpse of what it's like to live inside this prison.
They've got their own kitchens, they've got lots of different fridges, they do their laundry here, they each have their own bedrooms, they've got TVs. It's very much like living in a university campus.
But the high-security facility is no child's play. A former prisoner says the same.
All these people compressed into this little place with the guards, you know, watching constantly.
The security is pretty tight, and no escape has ever been recorded from this prison. In fact, there is little to no communication between the inmates and the outside world. The high-security inmates often spend time in isolation and are only allowed outside for 1 hour every day. This causes psychological pressure on them, and they often engage in fights with other inmates. They have strict visiting hours and no internet, which keeps them isolated from the rest of the world. They're also not allowed to speak to journalists. Another former inmate anonymously spoke about the conditions inside this prison, which proves that life is not exactly as rosy as some reports say.
I hesitate to complain about food because we're not supposed to have luxuries while in prison. However, I went anemic when I was in maximum security, which to me really shows that there was a deficiency.
HM Prison Stile, Cheshire, UK, commonly known as HMP Stile. This prison was opened in Cheshire in 1962. By 2017, the prison housed 486 women. The prison has been heavily criticized for its poor treatment of inmates, which has contributed to the high number of inmates taking their own lives. Overpopulation, lack of mental peace and basic amenities, bullying, and narcotics problems led to many of these incidents. Reports showed that the prison had poor substance abuse and mental health support, which drove the inmates to harm themselves. The healthcare support was also insufficient. Some of these women did horrible things to themselves while they couldn't cope with their deteriorating mental health.
Seen women try and take their eyes out.
They used to swallow razor blades, swallow batteries.
You can be walking up the wing and all blood will be seeping under somebody's door.
And you'll be confronted with more death than in any other female prison.
In 2020, a pregnant inmate had a stillborn child in the toilet, and she wasn't offered medical help immediately. It's alleged that the baby would have lived if the mother had received proper care during labor. Recent reports say that the performance ratings for this prison have dropped in 2023. According to The Guardian, the annual performance ratings for this prison was acceptable in 2019 and 2020, but in 2023, the Ministry of Justice has graded it as a serious concern. The annual performance ratings were figured out by reviewing various performance measures, including security and stability, training, skills and work, drug and alcohol addiction, and family accommodation and readjustment to society. Authorities are expected to take corrective measures to restore its level of excellence. Pollsmoor Prison, Cape Town, South Africa. The official name for Pollsmoor Prison is Pollsmoor Maximum Security Prison. It once housed Nelson Mandela and now holds both male and female prisoners of South Africa.
Walls designed to keep dangerous inmates out of sight, also hiding allegations of abuse, disease outbreaks, severe overcrowding.
Pollsmoor is overpopulated and reportedly has 300% more inmates than its capacity. More than 70 inmates live in the same cell, which was originally built for 30. Many of them sleep on the floor. The living conditions of male inmates can be seen in many documentaries and reports made over the years, which tells us that the women aren't all that better or happier in this prison.
Statistics can be hard to grasp. The horrific reality is not.
Basic necessities are scarce, and sometimes they don't even have enough water to flush the toilet. Fights often break out between inmates over food, tobacco, and toiletries, and often they're punished for the brawls, often with physical abuse.
They all share one shower and a toilet, but often it's just a bucket.
The place is very dirty, and the inmates suffer from many infections and contagious diseases like tuberculosis.
It's inhumane. It's a fact. It's inhumane.
Pregnant inmates are said to have babies in this unsanitary condition, and the babies are taken away from them. They usually grow up in harsh conditions without love or parental support. The inmates have limited access to medical care as the facility only has one doctor and one psychiatrist. To survive in this place, the inmates take help from prison wardens known as prison mothers. They supply them with basic necessities and medication, and in exchange, they receive money in their accounts. Another group of inmates called kitchen ladies are in charge of the food and tobacco. They're just as corrupt as the wardens, and are known to sell these amenities to the prisoners for hefty fees. HM Prison Holloway, London, UK. HM Prison closed in 2016, but before this, it used to be the largest prison for women in Western Europe. It was situated in Holloway, London, and was run by the Queen of England's prison service. Established in 1852, it was originally built as a rehabilitation center for male and female prisoners, but the Newgate prison closed down, and the number of female prisoners grew, prompting HM Prison to take in more inmates. The prisoners here received educational training during their sentence, such as painting, gardening, and cleaning. They were also allowed family visits for a healthy amount of time. Some were allowed freedom, so much so that they ended up loving their time there.
The best times I've had have been when I've been in prison. They help me in prison, they don't help me out here.
This genuinely raised some eyebrows as people questioned the authenticity of these prisons.
Someone says, I love prison, doesn't that tell you they're not quite right? How can anybody love prison?
However, not all of the prisoners here get a comfortable life. The prison staff and managers were involved in physical abuse and bullying of the inmates. Once these allegations were proven, the managers of this prison were transferred to other prisons in the early 2000s. Over 35 self-harm incidents were reported from the facility per week. Inmates had poor mental health too.
West is just 18, but she's caught in a cycle of petty offending, prison, and self-harm.
An inmate called Sarah Reed took her life on January 11th, 2016, after suffering from mental health problems while in HM Prison, prompting authorities to close it. She had previously reported abuse in 2014, but the authorities seemingly hadn't taken any action.
I was panicking so much when he was sat on my back because my lungs couldn't breathe. I turned around and I said to him, I'm asthmatic. If you don't get off my back, you're going to kill me by accident.
Bandy Up Women's Prison, West Swan, Australia. Situated in Perth, West Swan Bandy Up Women's Prison is one of two main prisons for women inmates in the Perth metropolitan area. It officially opened in January 1970 and served as a rehabilitation center for women. The other prison, Melaleuca Women's Prison, was established in 2016. In the initial days, Bandy Up Prison had a capacity of 68 prisoners, but it's overpopulated now and holds many maximum security prisoners. Various steps have been taken to reform the living conditions within the cells, but the problem persists. When prison authorities learned that the prisoners were sleeping on mattresses on the floor, they added new units in 2003. The cells could now hold up to 180 inmates, as they installed bunk beds to accommodate more inmates. Before this, some were even sleeping beside the bathroom. But this created more problems for the prisoners. Adding the beds did not improve the overall quality of life. Prisoners are forced to sit on the floor because the cells don't have chairs or tables. They also don't have sufficient showering facilities or medical supplies. However, with the establishment of the Melaleuca prison, pressure started to reduce on the Bandy Up prison. Female prisons are no less brutal than male prisons. Overpopulation, malnutrition, poor mental health support, little to no substance abuse support, and severe bullying by both inmates and prison staff are rampant in all of these prisons. With the growing number of inmates, it falls onto the authorities to build more prisons or rehome some to the less populated ones. While prisoners shouldn't seek comfort during their sentence, they can definitely expect to be treated with a little humanity. What do you think about these female prisons? Do you think the treatment they get there is justified? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.